he highly suggested everybody start wearing masks indoors again, but he didn't come down with a mask mandate. I expect
Yeah.
by a week or two, if we keep trending as quickly as we are, we're going back under a mask mandate again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nobody's fault but the people who didn't want to wear the masks in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are
Right.
successfully live. Wow, I look blotchy. I pinch my cheeks. Well, I wanted to take a shower. Okay, shut
I've
down.
got an echo on you.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay. Echo on you.
That's me having Twitch stream on to test that we are going through to it.
Oh, okay.
That was on purpose. Um, so I kind of wanted to shower, but I decided it was more important to have my brain on for the show
All right.
than, deal with that right now. Um, so I had a little nap because my energy levels are up and down and up and down. I'm on antibiotics and steroids,
Right.
so I feel like I'm a whole episode of Cells at Work right now. Like the antibiotics are having their battle with the infection in my inner ear, and then when they rest, the steroids step in, and I get all go go go.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's like I did. I had they gave me some Prednisone for my sinus infection, and I was like, that's great. And I would take it like first thing in the morning, and I still couldn't sleep at night. I was just like, okay, no, I don't need it. I can only imagine what I'd be if I was a bodybuilder on steroids. Holy crap. I would never sleep. So, yeah, I understand that. So, I'm sorry about your ear infection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like way down in my inner ear, so it's like behind my ears. Like it was hard to even
Ooh.
see for the doctor.
Ooh.
I told her, I was like, this happens every couple of years. I apparently have weirdly deep ear canals. And she's like, okay. But then she went to look. She's like, wow, okay, yeah, you do have really, really deep ear canals. And she had to get way down in there to be able to see where it was angry. And I don't have, any kind of thing that eardrops would help or whatever because it's way down in my inner ear somehow.
Right, right.
Or it's probably autoimmune. It's probably not an infection at all, but there's not really a good way to tell.
Yeah.
All right.
We ready?
Yeah.
All right. I blasted the socials 45 minutes ago, so
Okay, well, I just hit Facebook.
cool.
No, I did not tell other groups of friends. I probably should. I gotta get better at doing all of that for all my shows.
It's okay.
I feel like I got in a new one recently that has a stream pimp situation. I need like a list. What the hell?
Hey, New York Times, maybe don't say that the bipartisan bill is like frozen hail and flying pigs, because that's not helpful at all.
Oh, whoops. So there's a bad cut and paste. I just cut and pasted instead of. Oh my god. Hold on. Our channel, it put in a receipt for a warranty I bought for my dishwasher. Nobody needs that.
No, no, nobody needs that.
And where's Diamond Club? There they are. Project pimping, stream shilling. There we go. I'm gonna be on a show
Cool.
next week. I'm gonna be on. Not next week. Yeah, Sunday. On
Okay.
Wait, Haven't You Seen? talk about
Okay.
watching this Nick Cage movie. It's Sunday after next. I don't remember. 16th. Is that a Sunday? Whatever. Anyway, okay. Yes, let's go. I'll push the button.
Mhm.
Devil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and the ones who sow discord among brothers. Proverbs 6:16 through 19.
What is most important, Washington asked, of this great experiment, the United States? And then Washington answered his own question in this way: not the election of the first president, but the election of its second president. The peaceful transfer of power is what will separate our country from every other country in the world. Let's talk about the attempted coup on January 6th and the hearings that are going on about it now.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Seth Roth II, and you can follow the show on its Twitter. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site that you can find at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can find our past shows as well as ways to help us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to help us make this humble show. And with me today, my co-host, this show's Diana Prince, September.
Hello, I'm September, or 9 of 12, and you can follow me on Twitch or Twitter or wherever at 9 of 12. I'm also co-host of the Geek Grills podcast. Welcome to our Twitch channel. You can contribute here with bits, or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime, or subscribe with money if you like us that much. You can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and use any podcast catcher you like. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, all of that, and give us a review. That really helps other people find us. We also have a website to listen to our past shows and find bios about each of us at heresyandhearsay.com.
So, as always, we start with our mental health check. So, what have you been doing lately to keep yourself mentally healthy?
Well, taking a little break and traveling to Vegas for the wedding and to Oregon to see my daughter was a really good welcome break from routine. So I think that helped me recenter in a lot of ways. I mean, I ended up with actual, time for myself out on a mountain in Oregon in a camper.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I'm struggling with the blizzard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It hit pretty hard, and something I've been doing to try to make it productive and something better, something I can try to do about it, has been happening the last couple of days. I canceled my sub, but I did buy time another month with a token, because
Right.
I earned that gold. They can't have my time either, and it gives me an opportunity to participate in online protests and walkouts and things.
Right.
And I'm planning a show with the Grills. Jen will be
Mm-hmm.
showing up for that. It's very important to her. So readdressing our mission of just, being women in podcasting and taking up that space. I mean, it's in our name, that whole Grills thing they got to put up with as a female streamer. OMG, it's a grill. And we did a show a couple years ago, kind of revisiting, thinking, things have gotten a lot better. But I'm going to re-listen to that, and we're going to talk about that again, because across the industry, a lot of things have obviously not gotten better.
Right.
So I'm looking at that. I've joined a Discord. If people look up the hashtag Women's Week in Gaming. There's going to be something going on in the middle of August where a lot of female streamers are going to be streaming games that were developed by females.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And I know. Here's my thing. Speaking about that, there's a part of me that would like to do a show here. It's not really in our wheelhouse, but it sort of is because it's become like to the point where a state is having to step in and say, "Hey, you guys are not doing good."
Yeah. And people misunderstood that. Like they get on that, oh, it's an abusive government and let businesses do their thing, and no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we could cover it from that angle, if nothing else. I mean, that's why unionization is important to me. It's one of the things the walkout employees wanted was not having to sign these forced arbitration agreements.
Right.
Like they're not allowed to go press charges unless they, seek internal arbitration. And obviously, in that environment, that's not going to go well.
Yeah.
And so we need the government to be able to step in and protect people. That's why we have equal opportunity laws and shit.
Yeah, there's a picture going around on Twitter with one of the individuals that was named. And we'll get off this in a second. That was named with a bunch of other people who are, all laying on a bed with a picture of Bill Cosby above them.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, and we'll get into it. But here's the thing. I started on vanilla. I have collector sets of WoW. I was invested in WoW. I have a lot of stuff for Hearthstone. I enjoyed playing Hearthstone as far as a card collecting game. I've deleted all of that. I have this poster I bought, and I can't. There was a company that was making, like, they could make your own character and stuff like that. And they also did posters, and I'm looking at that now, and I'm going, it just hurts, But as far as trying to keep myself mentally clear, unfortunately, I've been diving in. There's been these 3 tracks and this is something I have to work on. There's these 3 tracks for myself. When I find a ball, basically something, I'm like a dog with an old bone. I just gnaw on it. And right now I've been on these 3 different tracks, which is, 1 is what we'll be discussing today. 2 is just how the COVID stuff is not working, and there's a lot of people, and we'll discuss that next week. And the 3rd is this Blizzard thing, and I'm just like, all right, I need to stop this, and I need to sit down and so I sat down the day before yesterday, and I just picked up one of my D&D books and started reading it, and just getting out of all of that headspace, because there's just so much going on right now. So that's why these mental health checks are important, is because we have to find ways to stop gnawing on these bones, at least in my case, or it's just going to make it worse.
I'm glad you found something good. For me, deciding to do a few things that are actionable lets me put it down and go get my other stuff done. I don't kind of grab on and obsessed very often, but I also have too much other shit that absolutely needs to get done all the time.
Right. Living alone and not having any children or anything like that, it does. Though there is a bit of freedom in that situation, there's also a bit of not being a prisoner in your own mind, because you're here and like, oh, here's a new video about it or whatever, and then you start that whole spiral again. And I'm just like, I can't keep doing this.
I suspect when the children move out, I'm gonna have to make use of more of those tools. Like giving myself a time for those things would work for me, I think.
Yeah, time. I'm finding that setting a time is okay, you have 4 hours to deal with the political and the social stuff like that. Right. After that, go find a cute picture about kittens or something. It's
call it research for the show, and you do it, for this many hours, and then go play on TikTok and look at silly people.
Yes, yes, and try to avoid the political TikTok, which.
Yeah, I had a
whole...
really funny one sent to me the other day. I should have forwarded it to you. It was hilarious. It was vaccination, trying to tell this right winger, like, it's like a million tiny guns in your body. Like, oh my god, I'm so mad right now. Like, I'll send it to you. It was hilarious.
Uh, yeah, that will be good. So, anyways, now before we get into the discussion of this week's topic, Brother Boy, will you lead us in a word of prayer?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
So, Nancy Pelosi, and there were some Republicans as well, at the right after the January 6th insurrection terrorist attack on the nation's capital, wanted to set up a 9/11 style commission, which would have been an independent commission of non-elected officials or prior elected officials, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, who were going to look at the events of January 6th and figure out how we got to that point. That was the whole purpose of them trying to set this up. It passed the House, but not completely bipartisan. I mean, were some bipartisan support, and then it went into the Senate, where the Senate basically said, "Oh, we don't want that." So, and and we'll have links to all of this, and especially what the 9/11 Commission was and what they looked at. But the pushback, I think, was because this is the second time that something like this has happened in our nation's history, where it was a Republican president in charge and some disaster happened while on their watch. And there were a lot of other factors with the 9/11 Commission, but one of the things they pointed out that some of this landed at the feet of that administration. And I think that the GOP in the House and Senate basically didn't want to have that bad press again. Am I wrong in that assertion so far?
Mm-hmm.
You with me? I can't hear you.
Hello.
Okay, there you are.
Yeah, my audio broke for a minute. I couldn't hear you, but I could see you talking. I assume it was going through to the stream. I just couldn't hear you for a second.
Okay. Well, basically, I was just going over the 9/11. We'll edit this in post. Basically, I was going over what the type of commission that they initially wanted, and my personal theory on why why the Republicans were resistant was because when they had the 9/11 Commission, one of the things that happened is they called out the administration for its own failings of not noticing the warnings and stuff like that.
And in this instance, it would be far more heinous to reveal, actually, like, encouraging, potentially taking part, leaking information. I want to see that. I want to see what happened every minute. As Amy Klobuchar and Liz Cheney has been talking about, we need to know what happened every minute. I mean, he was tweeting out that Pence is a traitor, and then people marched over and built a structure to hang him.
Mm-hmm.
And to act like this is completely unconnected is nuts. But evidence against him, I mean, we could charge him with crimes now? I'm not sure how that works. Because
Yes.
it's never been done. Like, can we charge him for things he did when he was in office?
You can, and that's here's the thing, and I think so. That broke down because the Senate basically said no, and so that didn't happen. So Nancy Pelosi said, "Okay, fine, I'll set up a select committee, which is in-house versus it being independent. It's in-house." And Nancy Pelosi basically said, "Okay, I won't choose, mine." And McCarthy, who is the minority leader, he will submit to me people he wants on this committee. And I will say if those people should be on the committee or not. Because, and here's what people don't understand is that there are people in the House and in the Senate that may be called up with, saying, hey, we need to have a discussion. You need to sit down and have some testimony. And putting those people on the commission doesn't help. That's why two of them, Jim Jordan and Baker, I can't remember his first name, Representative Baker, were rejected by Nancy Pelosi because Jim Jordan has been the new firebrand, basically, one of the firebrands for Trump, and also has been seen with pictures taken. And he was also in communication, as we found out yesterday when he let that fall out, that he was in communications with the president on the 6th. So you can't be your own judge. And I think that's the important distinction is that McCarthy was trying to put people on that he knew couldn't be on. And then he would, at that point, could say, oh, this is all a farce, and then try to delegitimize it.
Well, and all the stuff about reps that took some of those people on tours, potentially. When everything was supposedly closed down.
Right. That's
we
when
probably have reps still in office that assisted with an attempted coup.
Yeah.
And they're so worried about the next election. It's like, well, Trump still has a lot of supporters, so we still have to protect him at the risk of life, as the risk of our entire democratic structure and government. That's it's just so heinously greedy and the worst of politics. People wonder why people automatically don't trust politicians. Shit like that. It's gone too far.
Yeah. I mean, when you had like one representative live tweeting where the Speaker of the House was, and then all of this, I try not to laugh, but it's just like some of it I just go, at least in the old days you hid how, you're whatever. You're just being blatant, and it makes me tired seeing it all. You've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and her cohorts having a press conference outside the DOJ because they are upset on how some of the January 6th insurrectionist terrorists are being treated in the jail system. This is the same party that thought it was okay to waterboard, but because it's their supporters or whatever, they're all of a sudden now upset about the conditions at a jail facility.
And given their supporters were screaming "Stop the Steal," calling all the Capitol Police traitors, beating them profusely while carrying thin blue line flags and shit. And then while those officers are speaking about the horrors they endured that day protecting the base of our government, these reps are out having a press conference and blaming it on Nancy Pelosi because she's been talking about defunding the police for a year, and that's why they didn't have enough officers there that day. No, they didn't have enough officers there that day because you kept denying any kind of backup ahead of time and during the insurrection, as opposed to, you know, if BLM was coming. Like, folks, your racism is showing.
Yeah, because
Like, now you care about how these people are treated in jail? Are you shitting me?
yeah, yeah. We covered it live. We were watching it live, and it was hard to watch, but you could hear them chanting, traitor, 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 while they're busting into the Capitol and all of this stuff. And I watched the entire hearing of those officers, and then afterwards, that while one of the officers was giving testimony, he got a phone call, and you guys can look it up, but he got a phone call while he was testifying from a Trump supporter. And it was just like, I thought you guys were the back to police party and everybody, we're all about the police and we should have more police and stuff like that. And the stuff that he was saying, and this guy was a metropolitan police officer, worked on Vice, was an undercover cop, trying to clean up the city of Washington, D.C. He wasn't even supposed to be at the Capitol, but he rushed to help his other brothers and sisters of the Capitol, and he was tased so much that he had a heart attack. And then you call him and do that. Yeah. And go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, do we want to even address what was said in that call?
Yeah, we can. We can. We won't play it because this is going on YouTube, and we are not a big enough channel where we could take a hit. So yeah, but yeah. So basically, he called him up and said he was a traitor, and called him F a lot, a slur for a gay person.
And said he should have been beaten more.
Yeah, he should have been beaten more. That I think he said he wished all of them had died or something to that effect, if I remember. And it was just hateful. And here's the thing. For this,
like how do you scream and yell and call somebody names and a liar? And a liar. There was body cam footage we watched of him just saying, "Please, I have kids."
Yeah.
When it got so bad that he was pretty sure they weren't going to stop and he was going to die. Hoping that someone would, and thankfully, someone did step up and get him out. But, holy crap. It was after he'd already had to go back in a few times.
Yeah.
Because they were not letting up.
Those 4 officers were down in one section. They didn't realize that the Capitol had been breached, and they were holding the line at this one section, thinking they were the last line of defense. Which one of the representatives kind of sort of were, because me and another representative was huddled up into our office until they could get us out, and we were just a few feet away from you. What would happen if they broke through that line, and they hadn't gotten out in time before then? How would those Democratic representatives been treated? I don't even want to go into that.
And people talk, I mean, I told Barney earlier, I literally ran into someone this week, friend of a friend, and he said those weren't Trump supporters. Really? You should go listen to this testimony where this officer's like, I mean, I don't do my job based on politics, but somebody was screaming in my face that we have to stop the steal and you should be on our side, and nobody voted for Biden. And he's like, I'm not normally political or anything, but I said, I voted for him. Am I nobody? And they just slipped straight into racial epithets and, hey, everybody, this N-word voted for Biden. And it escalated the violence and hatred and toward him to say that. And that's absurd. I mean, to continue to act like it was BLM and Antifa, really? Use Occam's razor here, people. The simplest solution is that they were carrying Trump flags, they were Trump supporters. If they were carrying Confederate battle flags, they were racists. If they were there because they seriously thought the election was stolen, well, they're stupid, misinformed, and I mean, or they do have an ulterior motive. And the fact that white supremacist groups, more and more it is being shown, were involved in actually trying to organize things. I'm very curious. One of the officers offered into testimony, he got a text message right before things started where there was like a map and instructions saying, okay, here's, we're going to head toward the Capitol at this time after the rally, and we've got our marching orders, and go in groups of 6, conceal your weapons.
Right.
And the origin of that, I suspect, will be very telling. There are definitely organized groups there. These cops were like, somebody was approaching me in like combat training gear. I can't tell if they're showing, if they have a weapon yet. But if they have baseball bats, they were carrying a weapon. If somebody was getting tased, they were carrying a weapon. That's another thing. All the right-wingers keep saying, well, it wasn't like an armed insurrection, so you can't charge that criminally. Yeah, you can. Just because you were beating up that police officer with an American flag, it doesn't mean it wasn't a weapon because it was a flag.
Yeah, it's an improvised weapon, and they were using them, as well as they had hockey sticks, and they had stolen shields from other police officers and everything else, and was using
those as weapons. We shoot people in the Middle East for throwing rocks. I bet they're okay with that. Sorry, I'm usually the calm, reasonable one here, but I'm on steroids, so I'm going to use that as my rage excuse today.
I like, hey, this is my side of the street. What are you doing?
You be the kind Christian today. It'll be good for your soul.
It hurts.
I have very little left. I don't have grace left for these people anymore, Barney.
Oh,
I cried so many times listening to those officers.
I was angry, but I looked at each one of them, and all of them have PTSD. You can just tell by when they were showing. It's like, and I give the representatives credit. It's like, is it okay if we show this video? They asked very kindly to these individuals, but when you come back from watching the video and you're focused on the individual that they're talking to, you can tell it affected them. You can tell it hurt them. That it was painful to watch because it was like a flashback. It was like reliving that moment all over again.
There's something else in that vein, in the mental health vein, that I noticed, and for them to be saying like, I'm having to avail myself of the therapy I can get through the department, mentioning PTSD diagnosis, is that they invariably used language very specifically that the media struggled with for how long. Do we say rioters? Do we say terrorists? Do we say insurrectionists? What happened today? And these officers all very clearly had a chosen, and it felt chosen language. Most of them used terrorists or rioters. And it sounded to me, and I watched very little, I listened to most of it on NPR. it's trained in language. It seems I would venture to guess that it's part of their therapy, that they have worked out how to speak about it, and obviously they were reading written statements because I mean it was that kind of later articulate, even when sometimes they would break down and start to cry, but the language was so consistent person to person that that's probably like part of how they're dealing with it and accepting what happened and getting over their own guilt, because that's part of a survivor's problem. They've got to have survivor's guilt too. They lost colleagues.
Yeah, and that is another thing that upsets me. Now, this one upsets me, is that I've watched like discussions on Newsmax, on OAN, and on Fox about the officer who died, and they're all saying, "Well, he didn't die of any injuries; he died of a stroke." When you are beaten, and he was sprayed with chemical irritants, and the stress of that day, those were the factors.
Yeah. Strokes are very often triggered, people. Well, like the guy who had a heart attack. They would have done the same thing if he died. You don't think a taser electrocuting someone, guess what? Could cause a heart attack.
Yeah. Being sprayed with bear
bear spray and wasp spray.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, people.
Yeah, and then and then diminishing the service he gave and that he died,
Hold on.
Okay.
Fletcher.
Oh, are you podcasting?
So, my son is making fudge, and has discovered that because it was recently broken, my big glass one, we don't have a large microwave-safe bowl, and almost had an Aspie panic. Has been averted. Okay.
That's good. Because those can be difficult. But
yeah, he manages them very well at this age, but every once in a while, man, especially if he's trying to stress bake and then something isn't there.
Right.
Okay.
So,
moving on.
But them diminishing his service and how he died, and just saying, oh, he just died of a stroke. He was going to die of that, and basically saying, oh, he would have died of a stroke that day or the next day anyways, whether we had that attack or not, is insanely disingenuous and just cold-hearted. And it's like, it doesn't matter that he died of a stroke. The point is he died because, and you can look at the factors, and it's like, sure, there may have been some health factors as well, but they expedited that situation for him because of the sex, and that is, you saying otherwise is just hurtful to his family, to his colleagues, to his friends, and to the other, people that you supposedly back, but I guess because they're Capitol Police that are not counted as the blue line, I guess.
People that were, yelling at them, like, you should. I know, really deep down, you're on our side. Like, wow, no. No, they were there doing their job and protecting this building, and you're coming in to prevent the business of the building. Like,
yeah,
they specifically protect our government.
And the other thing that we all want to know is why it took an hour and a half before the National Guard was called up. That is, McCarthy was like, they knew that something was going to happen on December 12th. Yeah, there was supposed to be a rally at the White House on the 6th of January. They didn't realize, that Trump and Giuliani was going to send them over to go and attack the Capitol. That was not a plan. And on top of that, when you look at who's in charge, who is in charge of the National Guard in the District of Columbia? It isn't the mayor, and there's no governor. That's one of the reasons why they want to make it a statehood so that they can control their own National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
It is the President of the United States and the Secretary General that, or the Secretary General is the ones that control in D.C. And it took them an hour and a half before they said, okay, fine, you can come now. When they realized they weren't going to be able to get in and do what they wanted to do. That's my opinion. My opinion is that, and this is just in my opinion, but after an hour and a half and realizing that the staff and everybody had been able to get out, they're like, well, okay, we'll send them now to clean up because obviously they're not going to do what we were hoping they would do. That is my gut reaction 6 months afterwards, looking into this and going, and that's a bad place to feel that those people were that evil to think that if they couldn't do it within that hour and a half and that the Congress was safely evacuated and Mike Pence was safely evacuated, that they were like, well, I guess we'll have to send the National Guard in now because these guys weren't being able to do what we wanted them to do.
That would take an awful lot of steps given the timeline. Because, and a lot of different agencies would have had to have been involved. I think it was a failing, and I think it was not taking seriously the threat. And looking at a timeline, actually, I will put in our show notes for people to see. The Department of Defense actually has a timeline of when things were. It's intended to memorialize the planning and execution efforts of the DoD to address the violent Capitol attack. So it starts on December 31st when the mayor and the director of DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management requested National Guard support. And then the acting Secretary of Defense met with Joint Chiefs of Staff on January 2nd and the Secretary of the Army. And then on the 3rd of January, this was all being looked at and considered. So it'll be very interesting to go over and see where exactly it fell down. But they definitely didn't take it seriously, especially considering we know white nationalists are capable and have been enacting terrorist exercises in the United States. And, what the hell? When they request extra forces because BLM is coming, who, for the most part, does not enact violence, they got a ton.
Yeah. I mean, there's those pictures of them standing on the Lincoln Memorial because for some reason they thought BLM was going to attack the Lincoln Memorial. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. They're not interested in attacking. They're just interested in bringing up a point.
Okay,
and that's why
DoD on the 3rd confirmed with the Capitol Police that there was no DoD support request, and there was a meeting with select cabinet members to discuss support, and then they met with the president. He concurs in the activation of the National Guard to support law enforcement. So why the hell it didn't happen? Yeah, this is really interesting.
Right, and that's the thing.
Okay, that's where the mayor might have been bought, because he did write a letter on January 5th saying that no, they don't have any additional support requirements.
I know that the National Guard was doing traffic and doing traffic detail, so that may have been where they thought. But because that was their only venue, that's why they had to have a whole new authorization for them to then go and support the Capitol Police at that point. They were supporting the Metro and everything else for traffic support and stuff like that. But when the attacks happened, they had to get out because the orders were so narrow and its focus that they had to get a brand new authorization. That is something I've read, that they had to get a brand new authorization, and that's where that time frame came into play. Instead of them, being able to leave the traffic side and go straight to the Capitol, they had to sit and wait for another authorization because of the narrow scope of the details that they were given for for the call up.
Yeah.
So this is, and
they need it. Yeah, have a governor. Let's get Washington statehood, please.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those reasons why Washington D.C. needs to have statehood, is because they are. If something happens, I mean, to give you an example, during that same day, Cooper called up the National Guard here in North Carolina and got them to the capital of North Carolina, because there were viable possibilities that a similar thing could happen in the state capitals. There was chatter about that, and so he was able to do it, and it was one step, whereas DC has multiple steps they have to go through to get National Guard, which is ridiculous, especially considering the fact that they're the ones that DC has all of the governing bodies in our nation. They don't need to go through that much tape to get a National Guard out and ready, but they have so much more they have to go through versus like Roy Cooper or any governor, so being a state would definitely streamline that somewhat, I do believe. And I think that's important. But there was also it's like there was a lot of misinformation that was going through. I mean, we all know that Matt Gaetz said on the floor, well, they could have, there was somebody that said that there was software out there saying they were Antifa people, and the software company was like, no, we didn't. In fact, we found a bunch of white supremacists and everything else. But it's, and then you had like Josh Hawley, which, to be honest, we haven't heard much from him after the initial, stuff. So I think his whole rising star has gone down, and and Ted Cruz basically shot himself in the foot multiple times, and he was one of them too. This was them basically trying to court the Trump voters, so that in 2024, when they ran, they would be able to get the Trump support, and they're not even in the ballpark right now. After 6 months.
Yeah.
And so, there was a lot of factors to this. And here's the thing. I've watched Trump speeches since then, and he still is propagating the big lie, even now. And that's going to be detrimental to the Republican Party on its own right. That's one of the reasons they're passing all these laws, is trying to shore up their voters. There was a problem, but we fixed it now, as well as disenfranchising. The other thing is, a lot of Republican voters who are Trump supporters don't want to even go vote because they don't trust it, because Trump keeps going around and basically disenfranchising their own party's voters, and then COVID on top of that. So I mean, like, they are really struggling at this point, and there's all of this.
I don't know if I've heard enough. There are really people out there who are still buying the big lie. I mean, I don't hold a lot of stock in hell, other than Tucker Carlson should go there.
Oh, look, man, I'm getting Tucker Carlson right now. There's a level of anger I can go.
Why do people believe that whiny little Weasley?
Now. that's my job. No, no, I understand the anger and the rage, and I'm just like, mine has become kind of an ice pick, a hot ice pick, where I'm just hitting surgical points at this point. It's not the blustery rage I normally have, because I'm just like, even I can't keep up this kind of anger forever. A friend of mine says, you wake up every morning and choose violence, as being angry
Yeah.
all the time.
it's not productive.
No, it's not. But even I can burn out, and so much has been happening with just this January 6th commission and trying to get the truth, and it's like McCarthy. I watched the speech, and McCarthy was like, well, what about the officer who died on Good Friday? Well, first off, that has nothing to do with January 6th, so why are we investigating that?
Dude. Redirection at that base level isn't going to work. We're not toddlers.
Yes, but he thinks the GOP voters are.
Well,
I know that's still debatable at this point. I get you. I feel you on that one. But it's
how
But
could
the
they
thing
listen to
is,
those officers? Hold on to their law and order, thin blue line, like the officers personally professing their pain at seeing, like being officers, being veterans, and working on that force protecting the base of our democracy, and then being charged at with these accusations by people wearing hats saying they were vets.
yeah,
I fought for this country and you're a traitor, based on your con man's tweets. No, you don't just get to say this country needs to be what I want,
mm-hmm.
and isn't for everybody because you fought for it. That's not how that works. It's
who
for
else?
everyone.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You need to look back. You're breaking your oath.
You know who else
those officers were not.
Yeah, you know who else was in the military at one time? Timothy McVeigh. Do we wipe away?
McVeigh
Do we wipe?
me?
What's that?
Do you bring up McVeigh just to taunt me?
No, I did not. No, I didn't know that was a point. No, sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah. He was local to me.
Oh.
I had been to a dance at his high school. He's my age.
I did not know that. No, that was not the point at all.
I got to see his father very, very sad in the bowling alley after that. And I spent time wondering if the cops were going to come to my door because I lent someone at his school my anarchist cookbook and I never got it back. And then that happened. Ugh. I was like, whoa. But I never did hear from the cops. There's no real connection except that, I know people who know him and knew he was dead.
No, I was bringing up the fact that he was in the military as well, and he had military training and everything else. Does that suddenly wipe away? Talking about the cops and stuff like that, and everything. That doesn't wipe away the fact that he was a traitor to this country as well. And it's the same thing. It's like you can be a vet and whatever, but when you went in there to do the things that you were doing, you stopped. You broke your oath of office. You broke your oath defending this country, both foreign and domestic. And, I rewatched that. I had to find it again, but I rewatched that video that Trump put out on that day, and I played, remember it was like all of this stuff. And here's the thing. We're reliving it a little bit because we decided, okay, this needs to have our voices. And it's traumatic for me to re-watch all of this stuff again and live it as well. And I wasn't even being attacked, but I felt like, it's just talking about me. We were both, it hurt and it was raw and and us listening to that video of Trump, basically saying, okay, we understand, and like 90% of that video was him just keeping on with the big lie and telling his followers who were trying to kill people, 5 people died as a result of this, that, that he loved them, but they needed to go home now, was just rage inducing, spittle, only speaking in,
Like,
in
you
grunts.
just told them to march over
Yeah.
there and that you'd go with them, and then took
Yeah.
off.
And then went home and watched it on the live TV. And they
And
basically
then
pushed him
eventually,
out.
in the midst of violence, tweet that they should go home now.
Yeah, they basically pushed him out in the Rose Garden and says, "Do not deviate from this script." And they did anyways. But you need to say something now. And it was a 1 minute and 1 second little thing, and 90% of it was him still propagating the big lie. And then that next morning, when he came back on, I'm pretty sure it was his lawyer saying, "You need to say something, or else they'll try to pin this on you." And the thing is, it's not they're going to try. He was impeached because of this. The only president ever to be impeached twice. He lost the popular vote both times. He's a one-term president, and I don't get it.
Another big
I don't.
crazy thing that occurred to me this week when I ran into that friend, acquaintance, whatever, who believes the big lie. And he was just denying. Like, oh, I hate that Biden's bringing all the troops home and ISIS is out there and it's dangerous. I'm like, that was Trump's idea first? Like, he literally was fighting the generals about it? No, he wasn't. Yeah, dude, like, look, they're going to be home by Christmas. You don't remember this just last year. No, he didn't. Okay. What the actual... And so I walked away. I couldn't obviously have this discussion with this person. But... And they don't believe that it was Trump supporters that enacted the insurrection. Or the attempted one. But just, last week? Another one of Trump's cronies was indicted for not registering as a foreign agent,
Right.
and obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
Your man, Lord Dampnut, is a con man and a foreign puppet. And they're weird, blind, for that to be meshed up with this nationalist, we are the patriots. I got a text the other day calling all patriots from some right-wing group. I don't know how I got on their list. That's how they're defining patriotism is incredibly bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
That those people were calling our officers in Washington protecting the Capitol redcoats. None of them know what any of this means, apparently. Like, they aren't... The denial is so strong. It's not even picking and choosing facts at this point. They don't have any. It's these opinion talking heads. I can't even talk. I'm getting upset. There's opinion spewing trolls on networks like Fox News that are perpetrating the big lie. The only parts that are being grabbed onto aren't even true. They're way past spin. They believe this conspiracy, what Q has done successfully to so many people in this country, and then organized groups like the supremacist groups are being able to step in and tell all these patsies what to do. It became so dangerous, we almost lost our country to it.
Mm-hmm.
And these groups are still active. They still believe this. And these hearings are necessary. That is paramount. so that it
So-
never happens again, and so that the officers get what they need to prevent it and to protect themselves. And I'm not talking about tanks and shit. I'm about defund the police, you know, in its proper term. But this can't happen again. But I don't know how to make these people see truth. I mean, maybe we need to legislate like other countries where you can't call yourself news when you have a majority of what you are reporting as opinion. I've been on board with that for a long time. I'm okay with that regulation. And that would have prevented a lot of this nonsense.
See, so here's two questions. First off, the first question is, once this is completed, because it's going to take months for them to dig all through this stuff and everything else, what do you think that this will do any good for the side that needs to hear it? The side that needs to hear, hey, Trump was the one who did this. Trump, Trump was the one who delayed the action. Da 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 da. This is our recommendations to make sure this doesn't happen again. Do you think this will do anything for any of those on the Republican side?
I have to think some. And maybe we do just need to approach it one soul at a time. I cannot fathom or give up on the idea of anyone, no matter how far on that side they are, that if they actually listened to those officers speak, being able to continue to believe every morsel of that shit they've been fed. It was too real. It was too human. I mean, the evidence for a lot of this is overwhelming, but when it's blah blah, foreign agent indictment, big words, they can't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But the potential for these hearings to just reach ears and hearts exists. I mean, the 9/11 Commission got some action, but everybody was ramped up about that, so it's a little different. I don't know if it can create enough of the change that we need, but we can protect more people, and even if we get through to just a few, I don't know, it's a difficult question. I want to believe in the best in people, and I don't know what to do with the rest of them anymore. If you can listen to a grown man cry who almost died defending your government and still think that's the traitor, watching that body cam footage, there's no hope.
Especially
for you. Why are you
especially-
voting? Please stop voting.
yeah.
And definitely don't go ahead and don't wear a mask anymore.
Uh,
Sorry. My evil thought for the day was straight up out loud today.
The what really just punched me, it was at the end where he was being carried out, and his partner was saying, saying his name. He's like, "Stay with me, come on, stay with me," talking to him the entire time. And his cam was on, and he had missed like 4 or 5 minutes. He had blacked out for 4 or 5 minutes. But you still hear it from the cam where his partner is so concerned about his safety and is trying to keep him alive. That's what that was because I had not seen that video. I don't know if that video had been out before this, testimony. I don't think it was. But that video, that listening to that point from his cam, as he's got a couple of officers and you can kind of see them, and they're walking they're running down the hall and saying they need a medic and everything else. It's just, that's where you go, fuck, that's the point. that's
what
where you
hit
go,
me,
okay.
the thing that first got me really crying hard was the officer I mentioned earlier, where he's like, well, I voted for Biden, and then they just turned straight to the racist epithets and screaming at him, and he was just trying to hold the line as it got more and more violent, and just hold the line. And then when he needed to step away to go do what he could with the makeshift station for cleaning their faces of all the chemical sprays, and he sat down and for a minute started to process what had just happened, because I mean, you shut words out, when you're just doing your job like that for the most part.
Right.
And that he looked at another black officer who was there, and it's like, found out that that officer had gone 40 years without being called the N-word, and this guy hadn't heard it in a long time. I mean, you serve in wars, you don't get treated that. It's just not a thing anymore. And he just looked at the other guy and it's like, told him what happened, and was just, is this what America is?
Mm.
And it is. And I don't want that to be true. And the empathy for him having that realization with that responsibility and the trauma he was enduring to protect our nation, to be having that realization, that moment of like, holy shit, America is actually that.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's hard. It is. It's hard to, I go around and I drive around my area, and I see flags that are Trump 2024.
Oh yeah, we have too. There's a guy in town who has like 3 of those, and then some Confederate flags and some American flags, and one that says "fuck Biden." All on the same truck. Like,
well, we
that
know
hate looks really expensive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I see a Trump supporter, and my Christian belief system, that what I've been taught, Matthew 1, is not judge anybody. But on the same thing, you see that, and it's just a snap reaction. Somebody with a Trump flag, or somebody, it used to be, or the Gadsden flag. That is another one that I automatically look at as like, oh, okay. And I know to avoid that person. I know that having a conversation with that person is not going to help. That person is too far gone. And it shouldn't be that way. We had differences in the past, as Republicans and Democrats, but we could come together. When the former patron saint, which isn't anymore, Ronald Reagan. I will be honest with you, Ronald Reagan, it would be a liberal compared to the Republicans today. And but when Ronald Reagan, the former patron saint of the GOP, they still worked with the Democrats, and the Democrats still worked with Reagan, and they worked with each other. And it's gotten to the point where they don't. And we get people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and people who are, and Lauren Boebert, and people who just come off as uneducated. And look, I know it's the House, and there's not, the best and the brightest in the House sometimes. It's just whoever's available. I get that. But I would like my leadership to be smarter than I am and be more put together than I am. And the past 4 years, and we're still, a lot of us are still having to deal with that trauma, is the past 4 years has done a lot of harm to this nation. And it's going to take a lot. For every year that he was in office, it's going to take 10 to rebuild. And I just hope we have the time and space to do it. And that's my big fear. It's just that we won't. That someone else will come along and start it all over again. And as American citizens, we can't let that happen. We can't not, if there's another seemingly joke candidate that's running for office that is horrible. We need to laser focus in on that person. And we need to keep them all accountable, because so many of them have jumped on this train. And it led to January 6th. And, I'm to this day, I'm still processing some of the January 6th stuff and all of the hatefulness that was there. I was watching Right Side News coverage of it because they're Republican and they were there live. Parents brought their children, their small children, and pet owners brought their dogs to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And children got lost in the middle of a violent insurrection. And if they care, that's where it goes. Okay, you care so little about your child that you brought your child to this, trying to break into the Capitol. I don't know how you reach those kind of people. That's where
there were a lot of people that were actually just there to demonstrate and got swept up in the mass hysteria.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that's true, but
I mean, I know a guy in town. He's an asshole, but he was there, and when he heard people talking about breaking in, he left.
Mm-hmm.
He then tried to convince me that it wasn't a violent thing at all, but he quit talking.
He quit talking when you said, I watched it live.
Oh, no, he kept going for a while. Then there was a lot of FBI tip lines, and he shut the hell up on social media.
Oh, okay.
I was struck. The other thing... All right, we got to get moving along. We got to end this. But
yeah,
I did want to... I was also very emotionally struck. I'm an NPR junkie. I love my NPR. And sometimes listening is the best venue for me in a lot of ways. And when the officer was describing the situation and started dropping F-bombs and N-words, because they were things that were said to him, having the NPR correspondent only say, sorry about the violent language, but this is the truth. And they just let it keep playing.
Well, and that's what
they
did with
didn't ever attempt to bleep. Didn't cut out like you would normally hear when that kind of thing happens in coverage. Like, they'll put a delay on, they'll duck out of the coverage so they can get the delay set up. They'll come, we'll come back to this later. No. They just kept holding the line. And every time it happened, they're like, it's just the truth, we're letting this play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. It is. And CNN did the same thing with that guy's recording. It's like, we're not editing this.
And that guy specifically asked them to.
Yeah. Because it needs to be heard.
I'm curious about the laws around it. If they're going to have to pay FCC fines, I bet they will.
No,
and they just decided to do it.
I don't think cable companies have to go through the exact same guidelines, but it's possible.
You don't think what does? Radio broadcast does.
Yeah. Now, NPR may have to end up paying a little bit of money. But because it's news, there may be a slide from that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's a
I
live hearing
respected the decision immensely.
Mm-hmm. But, so look, this is going to go on and we'll keep our eyes on it. I followed the Twitter that they have set up for it. We'll keep our eyes on it. And, when things start to close down or if something important, we'll bring it up. We're probably not going to do another show like this. I don't think I can do another January 6th for a while. It's been 6 months and I'm still like, okay, all right, well, this is a little more painful than I expected. So next week we're going to talk about COVID instead, because that's a lighter subject. Between now and then, speaking of COVID, let's go ahead and do our carrot and stick.
Me. What's up, Doc?
So, do you want to do the carrot, or are you feeling stick today?
I guess I'll do the carrot. We should really decide that ahead of time.
We really should.
So apparently Republicans are urging supporters to embrace vaccines in an abrupt shift of tone. No way. Of course, the strategist is who told them to do this. Like, hey, if you look at the COVID map, red states are the ones surging hardest, and the party is, stepping up and saying, hey, yeah, you should get the vaccine. You should definitely get the vaccine. I'm not sure how they're spinning it because this article is not populating properly. But I'm glad, and I hope that the people who aren't vaccinated will listen to somebody. And if it's Republicans, then fine.
Yeah.
So
they
thank
get
you, GOP, for doing something right, no matter what your actual reasons are. You took way too long while people died, but thanks for stepping up.
Yeah.
You can have a carrot. It's only a baby carrot.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll be able to do it. And then the stick, Newsmax's Greg Kelly told his followers on Twitter, and there'll be a posting of it, that testified that they shouldn't be on the police force, that they were, cowards and weak, and that they should be, fired for how they're acting and how emotional they are, and fuck you, Greg Kelly.
So this guy just went straight up bully mentality and said, "Snitches get stitches."
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't do that, but yeah, I've watched some Greg Kelly clips, and he is just horrible as a human being. I thought Tucker Carlson, him and Tucker Carlson are kind of even, so that tells you what kind of person this is. But yeah, so there's I don't know if these were captured. I don't know if he's deleted them since, but yeah, this was, so much for Back to Blue. This whole week has been pretty much shown how little, and January 6th shows how little they actually care, how much they actually don't care about the police, unless it's working for them. So, right. So next week, COVID. So let's go ahead and let's close out the show because I'm going to need to lie down.
I'm going to go and drink a beer.
Yeah, have one for me too. So thank you again for joining us at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and any podcast as well. As well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget that $2. We also have a Patreon page. And $2 a month helps keep going.
I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9of12. That's NINEOF12. And you can also hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Hello?
Hello.
Wow, I suddenly can't hear you. That's fun. Hold on.
I can hear you. That's weird.
Yeah. I'm going to have to do something about this. I'm going to look at our stream, because I'm pretty sure you can hear me. And raid.
I can hear you.
Peralta. And then I'm gonna stop the recording. I'm gonna end our stream in a second after the raid starts, and then I'll try to get voice back with you.
Okay.
Okay. End stream.